Where are the low value men? Like, what are all the low value men up to during these trying times? Because the high value men, I know they're around. They won't shut the fuck up. Low value men, I have not heard a word out of. I'm starting to think I'm on their side. I think I want one of those. I want a low value man. They don't make podcasts. I haven't seen one low value man make a podcast. Do they not know how to use microphones? Maybe that's a good thing. That's hot. All right, I've never seen a man use a microphone for good.
Until now, everybody buckle up. It's low value mail time with your host, Danny Polishchuk. What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to an all-new episode of Low Value Mail with your host, myself, Danny Polishchuk. We have a great show for you tonight. I'm very pumped about this one. The one and only James Corbett is going to be joining us in the first half. And then we have a friend of mine, Daniel Bordman. He's a journalist. If you don't know who James Corbett is, by the way, you should definitely check him out. He's an award-winning independent journalist, the creator of thecorbettreport.com, which is an independent, listener-supported alternative news source. Daniel Bordman is a senior correspondent for the National Telegraph. He's lives up in Canada. He was like our go-to guy on all that India, Palestine stuff. And he is a self-proclaimed relapsed stand-up comedian. He's a good guy. I've known him for quite a long time. We got a banger. There's a lot going on. I don't even want to waste too much time. I want to bring James on because we don't have too much time with him. So I'm going to do this very quickly. Please like and subscribe. If you want to support the show, help me get a producer. I know some of you actually want me to never get a producer, but if you want to help me and get ad-free episodes of all the episodes, the Bathhouse, all that stuff, patreon.com/lowvaluemail. Tomorrow night, new episode of The Bathhouse live at 10:30 p.m. And then this weekend, Friday and Saturday, if you live anywhere near Saratoga Springs, New York, I will be headlining at the Comedy Works, Saratoga Springs. 3 shows, I think 1 show Friday, 2 shows Saturday night. Come check it out. Excuse me, will be a good time. All right, I don't want to waste any more time. So without further ado, let's bring on James. Oh, hey, how's it going, James? Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. Thanks for having me on.
Excellent.
And I notice you're on Patreon and YouTube, 2 platforms that I have been deplatformed from. So you must be doing something wrong.
I mean, hopefully you don't jinx me because
sorry.
This is not a new show per se, but I've only had guests coming on the show for like the last just this year. So but I've had issues. I mean, you'll find this interesting, but I actually got I received a defamation notice from the World Economic Forum that did not come with a strike.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what form did that notice take? Was that via YouTube or via directly?
It was officially from YouTube. It came from YouTube. It was said, you've received a defamation notice from the World Economic Forum. I can send it. It's crazy. And then but here's the thing. So all they said that your episode, you know who Johnny Vedmore is? Have you ever had him?
Yeah.
You know Johnny? So he came in, he was talking about Klaus Schwab, all that stuff. And then I received the defamation notice. And then I got, they just said, we're not showing your show in 5 European countries. We're unavailable. That was it. That was the only thing. And I go, that's not so bad. And then 5 days later, I got a strike on my channel for uploading I do a comedy podcast at a comedy club here in New York. It was the day, I've told the story many times, but it was the day the Unabomber died. And we were just talking about it. And I got basically 5 days later, I get it. And it was a reel. It wasn't, and the main episode didn't get a strike, got a strike. And then the strike went away. They remonetized my channel for like some short period of time because this was only like a month ago, and then I just checked recently and it was just like, your channel is not eligible for monetization on my main like comedy sketches and all that stuff. So
yeah.
Anyways, yeah, but I'm not.
I'm just wondering how you defame an organization. Like, what does that even mean?
I mean, that's what I'd like to know. And like, who is? I mean, you probably have know way more about this stuff than I do. But like, what do they just have some computer jockey just sitting at the computer all day? Just kind of looking for people talking shit about them on the internet?
I would assume that's more algorithmically policed, but
Yeah, you would have to think so. I've never heard of someone getting these like a defamation notice from an
No,
organization.
I've never heard of that from YouTube.
No. So I don't know if that's something new on their part, but anyways, yeah. What did you? Do you mind if I ask? What did you get kicked off of? Because you're not even on Twitter, which I actually wanted to talk to you about.
Yeah.
Were you on Twitter?
I left Twitter. Yeah, no, I was on Twitter for a period of time. I think I got on 2012 or something like that, and I took myself off in 2018. In fact, my last ever tweet was something like, I'm going to get ahead of the curve, because at that time, delete Facebook was trending.
Yeah.
And I can't remember, maybe it was the Cambridge Analytica scandal or something. There was a bunch of people like deleting their Facebook. And I'm like, I'm going to get ahead of the curve, hashtag delete Twitter. And then I nuked my own account.
And just because of their policies for censorship and whatnot?
Well, for many different reasons. That would be one of them. Again, that most people weren't even thinking about, didn't care about at that time. That was 2018, man. That was the good times of Twitter, right? When it was infested by U.S. Deep state intelligence operatives, as we now know. But hey, whatever. Anyway, it's a good platform for getting the word out, man. Well, actually, not only myself, like noticing the stats on my own back end, I realized, Twitter doesn't actually drive very much traffic, but I just saw recently that's been vindicated. Actually, Twitter does not drive much traffic.
Sure. You don't, because I actually became aware of you due to, I posted one of your clips, or I reposted someone from some page about the Oklahoma City stuff. And then so you have not even with the changes at Twitter, would you consider coming back, or you're just like, that's...
Oh, God, no. Oh, yeah. No, I'm not an Elon Musk fan, just generally. And probably not for the reasons other people aren't Elon Musk fans. I kind of am concerned about the transhumanist technocratic stuff. But if people are interested, I did a podcast, Meet Elon Musk, Technocratic Huckster, which talks about his extremely unlikely backstory, etc., and his rise to prominence, and his he's going to save you guys by doing the exact same kinds of censorship. It's not like Twitter is now a free zone where you can, no, of course it's still censored. He brings in Yacarino, who's talking about freedom of speech, not freedom of reach, etc., all the same talking points. But now he's hailed as some sort of hero as he's trying to build the WeChat of the US. And what's WeChat? Oh, right, that Chinese app that controls every aspect of your life, and through which the Chinese government can algorithmically and digitally control you in the coming digital gulag, where you so much as jaywalk in China. It's, of course, facial recognition everywhere. It takes the picture. It knows who you are. It automatically deducts that fine from your account through your WeChat. And that's what Elon Musk is trying to bring in. Yay, guys. That's the answer. Don't think about decentralizing this communications platform that is the internet, that was built as a decentralized communications platform. No. We all have to centralize onto these corporate controlled structures and put our entire identity and all of our content into these structures that can then be deleted at the flip of a switch, like YouTube did to my channel of nearly 600,000 subscribers.
I bet you. When did they do that? Was that recently?
That was, I want to say March of 2021. Anyway, a couple of years ago now.
Yeah, a COVID-related thing?
Oh, yeah. Well, that was the ostensible trigger. Actually, the funny thing is the third strike. So I had a bunch of strikes and takedowns and blah, 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 blah. I knew it was coming from a mile away. In fact, I've been saying since, I think, 2015, I did a video, the revolution will not be YouTubed. So I've been warning people for years and years and years and years. YouTube, this is a bad idea. Do not just... great, you follow me on YouTube, great, but just make a bookmark of CorbettReport.com, because I have a feeling at some point. Anyway, so I've been talking about this for years and years, but obviously I saw it coming. I knew the strikes were coming. I knew I had 2 strikes, but I made the conscious commitment. I am not going to self-censor. I'm not going to put up little teaser videos and say, hey guys, get the full video over here. I'm going to post exactly what I want to post. I'm going to say exactly what I want to say, and I'm going to let the world see, okay, this is what they're going to do to me. And so I knew it was coming. But the thing that I didn't expect was the third strike was a video talking about the philosophy of science. Because, oh my God, you can't be reading, Karl Popper and reading dry philosophical treatises on your podcast in this day and age, because that goes against the WHO and the CDC or whatever.
That was essentially, at that point, you just had a bullseye on you, and they just picked whatever
for sure.
video. And there's just
Absolutely.
that was
Yeah.
that. Well,
Yeah.
and you're on Rumble right now. Do you worry that Rumble, as a publicly traded company, is going to start having some sort of pressure and influence put on them to essentially go against their?
Well, you know me, conspiracy realist. I kind of worry about Peter Thiel and what side he's really on, and I don't trust him as far as I could throw him. And the fact that he's behind Rumble certainly gives me pause for thought, and that on that alone.
Sure.
And I've heard from other creators like Ryan Christian, Last American Vagabond, talking about problems he's had with Rumble and monetization and what have you. So I don't trust any of these platforms, and I'm on them in the exact same way and for the exact same reason that I created my YouTube account in 2007. And I remember that actually doing that because that was like a moment for me when I created a YouTube account, because I had the conscious thought, I would never do this in a million years, like signing up to create an account with this YouTube. Why would I do this? But it was because I was starting my website and I was starting to produce this information. I'm like, this information is important. People need to hear it. For the time being, this enemy information weapon system is open because they're trying to draw everybody into the web. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to reach in. I'm going to use this for all it's worth. I'm going to spread as much information as I can for as long as I can. But I had, from the very moment I signed up, I had in the back of my head, this is not going to last forever. So I better use this for what I can while I can. And that's kind of the approach I take to pretty much any outside platform that I'm signing up for, or whatever. It's not an endorsement by me. Yes, I love Rumble and everything it stands for. Or no, of course not. But I am using it to get information out to people who are there and who need to hear this information. But it brings me back to the sort of larger long-term op that has been in place for decades really now, to take this decentralized communications platform and try to control it and put everyone into centralized boxes. And one brilliant example of that, if you need it, is RSS, really simple syndication. Never heard of it? That's because they don't want you to know about it. But it was a brilliant solution. Okay, I want to follow this guy. I like this guy. I want to know what this guy's saying. I want to know what this guy's saying. You can go to their website, because everyone used to have, at the very least, like a blog or platform or something. Sure. But at any rate, hopefully go to a website, sign up to their RSS. There's no middleman. There's no Twitter. There's no Facebook. There's no third party in between that transaction. That person has an RSS feed. It sends out the information. Hey, there's a new episode. Your feed reader gets it and downloads the episode. As long as you have internet connection between those 2 points, there's no third party in between stopping that from taking place. There's no corporation that's going to come along and delete your feed or whatever. No, I host my feed on my own server. That's the way the internet was meant to work. That was deliberately broken. And I watched that happening because back in the day, everyone had RSS feeds, and that was the way that you sent out your podcast. There were various apps to make it easier because, oh my God, code, XML. Oh, how do I do this? Whatever. So you got to sign up to a corporation that's going to, don't worry, we'll take your feed and we'll make it nice and readable and send it out in all the formats. And there was a one called FeedBurner that I was using. And FeedBurner was great and it functioned well. And then it was taken over by Google. And Google literally let it die. It stopped upgrading it, stopped doing anything to it, sort of
just
put
so
it
they
over
could
to the
have
side.
their own thing, essentially.
Then they discontinued it altogether, so it doesn't even exist anymore, I think. At any rate, so they took RSS and deliberately canned it so that everyone will go to the social media platforms and put their identity in corporate structure.
And you literally just have your own server. You live in Japan, right?
Yep.
But you're from Canada.
That's right.
There's an all Canadian episode tonight, actually. Me, you, and the next guest.
Yay.
Where are you from in Canada?
Calgary.
Calgary, Alberta. Nice. Me and the next guy are both from around Toronto area. So I want to talk about what's going on because we don't have you for that much time. Plus, a lot of people have questions for you. So we're going to open the phone lines shortly. But okay, do you follow Twitter? Like, do you from a distance, not with an account, do you look what's going on Twitter? And like, at what point do you think that that's kind of the top of the funnel in terms of how information, like, it seems like it's almost right now, it's like Telegram, Twitter, and then like 8 steps down is like CNN.
Right. Yeah.
Like, do you look at it in that sense?
I dip my toe in there sometimes. And for example, a few months ago, I just dipped my toe into Twitter sort of randomly, and I can't even remember which account I was on, but I saw someone retweeting Joe Rogan or something, and I'm like, what's this about? And it was the Peter Hotez thing where he had Peter Hotez on his podcast, and like, why won't you debate? Or RFK Jr.
Yeah, it was RFK and yeah, exactly.
And so I found that out just because I kind of randomly dipped my toe into Twitter. These days, it's harder and harder to do that because now I find I've tried to check someone's Twitter profile and it won't show you all their tweets anymore. At least not if you're not signed in. It'll show like select ones from 2017 or something. I'm like, what? So it's weird.
So then I guess I imagine you must be tracking because obviously you've covered 9/11, stuff like that. It seems like there's a possibility that we're watching something similar unravel in real time. Safe to say, I don't know so where do you get your information from then? If because I feel like Twitter is kind of the source, but I mean, where else do you go?
Well, I use RSS feeds actually, and okay. I've talked about this on my Solutions Watch podcast, Really Simple Syndication, on Solutions Watch, where I have a bunch of feeds from a bunch of different news sites, and so I go through 100 to 200 articles a day, headline form, and then I'll dive into the ones that I think are more important. But yeah, I go that way, and I know that's kind of surprising to people, like, oh my God, but those articles are more than 17 seconds old. Like, how can you possibly live without knowing what's up to the second trending on Twitter? But actually, it's funny. Once you step off of Twitter, as I did, as they say, 5 years ago now, you start to notice the people who are on Twitter really think that the Twitter conversation is important and that what's trending on Twitter is the news. Yeah. In the same way that people who watch CNN or Fox thinks that is the news. And of course, that's like, why aren't you talking about what the people on Fox are talking about? Why aren't you talking about what the people on Twitter are talking about? It's interesting once you step out of that bubble to see the way the bubble affects how people perceive the world.
Yeah. And it is an interesting point because, you're saying that you kind of like, there is a benefit almost to not getting like something, all these opinions the moment that they happen, because for example, today there's this bombing of this hospital and the whole thing is all over the place, right? Like, I mean, you're almost doing yourself a favor because it's like Twitter is becoming like pretty toxic place for the most part, but like just the discourse around it. And then, the people who are more conspiratorial minded are definitely, things are definitely kicking into gear in that sense because, they have the bombing and then people are like, all the people who are basically siding with the Palestinians are like, it was Israelis. The other side says it was Hamas. Then like the Israeli government comes out and they said like it was their own rocket. But then there was like, a tweet from one of the people who works with the Israeli government who's basically saying like, the IDF did the strike and then deleted the tweet. It was like the whole thing's crazy. Like it's very much like the fog of war. So you're kind of very much thinking like, I'm just going to let this marinate for a minute and see.
Yeah, I really don't need to hear every single opinion of every single person on the internet as it's happening. And especially with situations like this where, yeah, what do I, a Canadian in Japan, what possible way do I have of vetting absolutely anything about that story that's taking place right now? I can't even confirm there was an explosion at the hospital. I'm not quite at that level of radical skepticism yet, but at any rate, I certainly have absolutely no way of verifying or vetting whose rocket was hitting what and in what way. All it is just opinions. And yay, great. I can keep track of the opinions in real time as they happen, or I can read articles that kind of compile that for me. Right. I know which I'd prefer to do.
And so do you think there's like, because it seems, and I can't tell how important, because part of me is like, there does seem to be an information war. Definitely. Like when you go, like the Israeli government's getting community notes on them and then there was one that disappeared. There was one, I don't know if you saw that. There was one community note on the official Israel Twitter page, and then they received a community note, but then it just did the community note. It had like 650,000 notes on it or whatever, like people like approve it, and then it disappeared. And like there's just like at what point does the not a consensus, but like, does that not matter? Like, are you of the opinion that governments and the people who are in charge, they're just going to do what they're going to do, and this stuff does not matter?
Yeah, well, okay. I guess the first part of this is, okay, once we understand and realize and consciously internalize the fact there is an information war and that everyone is engaged in it. And that's explicitly what this is all about, essentially. I mean, why does Hamas or Palestinian Authority or anyone try to communicate about what's happening? Why does the Israeli government try to communicate about what's happening? Why is everyone trying to put their opinions out there? It's because everyone is engaged in the battle for your mind and what you think and believe. And once we get to that point, yes, of course, every government and every institution in the world is trying to influence you. And once we recognize that, of course, what is the follow-on understanding that we can come to immediately? Oh, that's because what I think and what I believe is important. So I think one of the most important things we can preserve is our intellectual sovereignty, our cognitive sovereignty. What is it that I believe and why do I believe that? And once we start to guard that, I think we can at least start to appreciate what these conversations are about and the way that they're influenced. And why would the richest man in the world, I don't quite believe the Forbes rich list, but anyway, one of the richest men in the world.
Richest, I've always joked about it, but I'm like, the top 100 aren't on any kind of list.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not
right,
lists.
exactly. But anyway, the richest man in the world, why would he be interested in buying Twitter? I mean, because it is absolutely and incredibly, it's more than just advertising revenue. No, this is about controlling public conversation. And don't worry, guys, I'm putting Linda Yaccarina in as CEO, and we're going to start disappearing community notes and working with Saudi Arabia and India and others to silence political activists, et cetera, et cetera. But don't worry, guys, I'm the free speech guy. Again, this is part of the information war for sure.
Yeah. And are you concerned about, because it seems like, we have currently wars on multiple fronts. I've seen some cases to be made that China probably, there's been the rumblings about the China-Taiwan. Seems like if that were to kick off, we would be, are you concerned about some sort of World War III scenario? Like actually though, yeah. Yeah. And absolutely.
I've talked about this a lot. So people can search World War III on my site and they'll find a bunch of things I've said on it over the years. My second ever podcast episode from July of 2007 was World War III starts in Iran. And I think that's probably still, a pretty good assessment. At any rate, it certainly could start in Iran, but it could start in many, many different places at this point. And obviously sitting here in the Asia Pacific, yeah, you better believe China and Taiwan is something that's on my mind. And I look at the Rand Corporation hosting simulated television exercise war games on MSNBC about what if China took Taiwan and how quickly would that escalate to nuclear war and who would win the nuclear, like that kind of craziness that is now being fed. Yeah, that's part of this. Ukraine and Russia is part of this. What's happening right now in Israel and Gaza is part of this. And it's one of those things where it's not just one particular thing in one particular place. It's going to be all sorts of different things. And as I've pointed out recently, it could happen, in a sense, the entire world could change in a 24-hour period. Imagine Israel tries to go into Gaza and Iran ends up getting involved in that. And then, of course, that brings in the US. And then Ukraine and Russia, maybe a nuclear exchange. And then China takes Taiwan and everything happening all at once. Completely everything off the table. And I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm not saying that that's necessarily the way I think it's going to happen, but it could happen. And there are so many different possibilities in the air right now that at any rate, I think there's cause for concern, shall we say.
Yeah. And do you have any kind of prognostication of how you think this might shake out? Because there are, speaking of Iran, there are right now, due to specifically this hospital bombing, because obviously the information that was flowing out was coming out kind of both sides. A lot of people obviously just were like, of course the Israelis bombed the hospital, regardless of if that did happen. And I don't know what's the case, because I'm sure it's been changing all day and it could change next week or whatever. But there are these protests all over the Middle East right now. All these countries are protesting. Do you think it's something like the United States needs to be pulled into to really kind of throw some gasoline on it?
Yeah, well, that certainly would throw the gasoline on it, wouldn't it? Yeah. There are so many different ways this could play out, and my opinion is worth no more than anyone else who's sitting halfway around the world watching these events from afar. So take it for what it's worth. I think it's interesting that we haven't had the ground invasion of Gaza yet, which is beginning to throw into question whether that is going to happen. And
because they said it was weather.
Obviously, that
they said they said over the weekend that it was the weather that they were planning it.
They said weather, but now here we're in it's Wednesday here in Japan.
Yeah, and it's
still
Tuesday night here.
Yeah. Still waiting. So.
Okay, and one last thing, and then we're going to open the phone lines. And I appreciate you again coming on the show. This is very cool. But so, do you have any thoughts about just how this whole thing kicked off? Because there's a lot of conspiracies, essentially, theories, whatnot. Nothing's proven. And I don't think we will. Usually with this stuff, you don't get the answers until after, right? Like, you don't get the answers until 10 years later when they, you know, like you don't. If that, right? But we're very much in the fog of war right now.
Yeah.
So
sure.
I think the best thing you can do is just kind of maybe use some sort of historical situations to maybe like map that out for here. But like, do you have any thoughts of how Israel just got caught in the pants?
I am a card-carrying conspiracy theorist. I've been talking about 9/11 truth, etc., since day one. So since day one of my podcast, not since day one.
Sorry to cut you off, but how quickly did you get on the 9/11 stuff after?
I'm ashamed to say that for 5 full years, I wouldn't even countenance the idea of a conspiracy around 9/11. This comes from someone who my whole life I've understood, it wasn't Lee Harvey Oswald acting alone. The government lies about things, etc. But 9/11, that's a step too far. So it was 5 years. It wasn't until, as I understand it now, I didn't even understand it at the time. It was all of the events surrounding the 5th anniversary, and it got C-SPAN coverage, and there was a lot of talk, and that sort of filtered through to me here in Japan. I was just discovering YouTube at that time because I just moved into a new apartment that came with an internet connection. So I was playing around in YouTube and getting all of these related videos about 9/11 truth. And that's when I started to go click on things like, oh my God, this is so stupid. And a lot of it was stupid, but there'd be one or two things with a little nugget in there that can't be true. Really? Is that really true? And I'd go and research. Oh yeah. Oh, Operation Northwoods. Oh, that really was a thing. Oh, I didn't know about that. Oh, French intelligence did say Osama bin Laden was meeting with CIA and in a hospital in July 2001. Well, that's weird. And blah, blah, blah. And, the snowball rolling downhill. So that's how I got into this. So, I have my questions about every received narrative that we're asked to believe. And when they call it Israel's 9/11, that sets off some different connotations in my head than it would in someone who believes the official 9/11 story, hook, line, and sinker. But similarly to 9/11, that whatever you believe about what really happened there, the story of the penetration of America's defenses on that day stinks to high heaven, shall we say. And I've gone through this in deep dive documentary format. People can look that up on my site if they want the details of that. But similarly in this situation. Thank you, CorbettReport.com. And yes, all of my media is available 100% for free. You don't have to be a member or anything. Please use it as a
great
resource.
newsletter as well.
Thank you. So yes, with regards to this one as well, not only is it, the little things have trickled out. Egypt did warn something was coming, but Israel didn't take it seriously, et cetera, et cetera. There's the suspicious, weird movements of this supernova festival thing to move it closer, but beyond that, people should check out Efrat Fenigson, who was a former IDF. She worked on the border. Was recently on the Brett Weinstein podcast, I believe, and she was talking about the how completely impossible, essentially, what happened was. She was working 25 years ago, before internet, so she was literally manning the phone. If any breach or any suspected potential breach of the border wall happened, she'd get the phone call and to check it out and blah, blah, blah. And she said, literally, a cat moving along the fence could trigger the warning, right? I mean, and we'd be all over that. But in this case, it wasn't 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8. No, it's 15 simultaneous breaches of the border, people coming in, paragliding on motorcycles and all of this insanity, killing people, taking hostages, running around for hours. They had somehow had color-coded maps of not only just general Israeli installations and IDF facilities, but literally the IDF intelligence hub and all of this. And they knew exactly where to go and who to strike, and dragging people out in their pajamas and all of this, running around for hours and hours and hours with no security in sight, no IDF, it's just impossible. It's unthinkable that it happened the way that they're saying it happened. And even people in Israel are now starting to wonder to what extent was there some sort of collaboration going on.
I also was thinking too, because obviously it happened over a holiday, and everybody's like, Israel, people trying to attack Israel on holidays, but like you would think that obviously Israel knows that. And so they would even be on higher defenses on holidays, not
what's that war called again? Oh yeah, the Yom Kippur War. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying though, right? Like you'd think they would have been on a higher alert, and they even maybe step off the gas a little bit. So then I guess the question is, why? Like, are they trying to destabilize the Middle East? Are they just trying to finally just take Gaza back once and for all?
The action is in the reaction. So that, as you say, we won't know the story of this until sometime. Until we see the way things play out, because what is the real, again, okay, let's take this from the perspective, it was total organic Hamas attack of these dastardly terrorists, and they did this incredible, like the biggest breach of the border in Israeli history and all of this. And so they go in, they kill a bunch of people, they take some hostages, and then they go back to Gaza and sit and wait to be bombed to smithereens. Like, what was the real military strategy here? What was the objective? What did this actually accomplish in terms of... that makes no sense. Yeah. But then from the other side, now, the longer that this... don't worry, guys, we're going in, ground invasion, boots on the ground, we're going to clean out, we're going to... And the longer they delay that, the question on again comes for me, well, what is Israel doing with this? And if this was a collaborationist, some sort of false flag, whatever, why? What was the ultimate objective of this? Some things we can already see, one of which was Netanyahu, for people who don't know, was in incredible political jeopardy for months and months and months.
Tried to change the Constitution, right?
Yes, trying to change the way that the High Court functioned and its relationship to the Israeli parliament. And there was huge protests, masses of people protesting. And in fact, even if a couple of months ago, they were talking about IDF reservists and others were literally saying, were threatening to walk out and to stop serving because they absolutely couldn't deal with the changes that Netanyahu was proposing, etc. I'm not hearing a lot of people protesting and what have you at this moment, right? Everyone.
I mean, what brings the whole country together, unifies them, like exactly what happened.
Exactly as on 9/11, where I don't know if you remember, but pre 9/11, George Bush was not the most popular human being alive.
No, he was not.
The day after 9/11, he was the most popular person in America. That's for sure.
All right, we got a call. One moment, please. Hold on there, James. Hello, thanks for calling Low Value Mail. Who am I speaking with?
Yo.
Hello. One moment, please. Hey. Hold on a second. All right.
Dude, y'all are the man.
James, you hear him?
Corbett.
Yeah, yep. You're on with James.
Best
Go ahead.
Case, James Corbett, you're the man. Best case for the Palestinians versus worst case for the Palestinians. Thank you for your time, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Well, worst case is essentially ethnic cleansing, genocide. Essentially the bombing of Gaza to smithereens, displacement of who knows how many people, and the killing of many others. That seems to be pretty clear what their worst case scenario is. Yeah. I think we can imagine what the worst case is. The best case, in this case, I think the best case involves not something about the sort of military strategy of what's happening on the ground, but about public opinion. And that is something that over the past several years, I think we have seen the needle moving of public opinion starting to realize that, Israel, maybe they're lying about certain things. Maybe they're not maybe they're not the people we should be supporting 100% no matter what in this conflict. And we started to see that, for example, in 2014, was it Operation Cast Lead, etc. Some of the atrocities and war crimes that were being committed were even being televised, let alone talked about on the internet, etc. And I think we have seen public opinion moving, but until widespread public opinion is on the side of the Palestinians, well, if that were to happen, and if the complete and total establishment media blockade of any position that would in any way be favorable to the Palestinians, unless and until that blockade is broken, I'm not sure how this would happen. But I think a best case scenario would be public opinion, generally speaking, to be moved closer to the side of the Palestinians. That would be, I think, the best case scenario, because then it's not about the military strategy, it's about the political context. And at the very least, Israel wouldn't be able to essentially keep people in an open air prison and then ethnically genocide, cleanse them.
Yeah. Okay, we got another call. One moment, please. Hello, thanks for calling Low Value Mail. Who am I speaking with?
Hey, my name's Lyric.
Hey,
calling from Hawaii.
Yeah, just 1 second. And all right, you're on. Go ahead. Hello.
Hey,
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
can you hear me?
Yep. We can hear you.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I'm curious what you guys think the U.S. involvement should be in this kind of conflict, considering the other ventures they have going on in this moment.
James, go ahead.
My position is, let me put it from my personal position. I'm a Canadian in Japan. What should be my position in this? And the fact that that even needs to be thought about is itself part of the problem. I mean, why on earth should people halfway around the planet have some sort of personal stake in what is going on that other side of the planet? Now, as we've been talking about, of course, this could mushroom out or mushroom cloud out and become a much, much bigger issue very quickly, right? So that obviously, and because we live in the world that we live in which global Pax Americana is kept at the barrel of the American gun, then obviously, America does have some role to play in what's happening in the Middle East, etc. But there's something fundamentally wrong with that whole concept and that system, which is, of course, 180 degrees completely opposite to everything that at least the founding fathers of the U.S. were talking about a couple of hundred years ago. No entangling alliances. Why would we get involved in some European conflict or what have you? No, we're American. We'll trade with everyone and we'll have our friends, but it doesn't mean we're going to get involved in other people's battles. Well, how is it changed so completely that it's now literally the exact opposite, and America has to be involved in everything? That is kind of where my mind goes.
And I'm very curious, like if any lessons were learned from the war in Iraq, in this, the sense that, like, I don't know, what was the final figure for how many trillions of dollars was spent with essentially nothing to show for it? Yeah. And again,
and whatever that final figure was, by the way, it's wrong, because as we know, the Pentagon cannot balance its books and will not balance its books. So anyway,
right? Yeah, they don't even. It's not even a requirement of them. But yeah, I mean, I don't think
actually it is legally required. They've literally been illegally breaking the law by not balancing their books.
Well, I guess who's going
to arrest
the Pentagon,
the Secretary of Defense?
Yeah, exactly right. All right, one moment, we got another call here. Hello, thanks for calling Low Value Mail. Can you turn down your speakers, please?
Yep, absolutely.
One moment. And where does this thing go? All right, you're on. Go ahead. You're on with James. Go ahead.
Well, hey, Danny. Hey, James. First off, thanks for everything that you guys do. So one little other conspiracy I want to throw in with the whole Israeli-Palestinian Gaza attack was the whole festival, and the fact that the festival was right on the border. And from my understanding, the location was set up or announced the day before. So it seems probable that potentially that Egypt warned Israel or some of the Israeli intelligence that this attack was going to happen. And then they purposely set up that festival there just to get kind of more people killed and kind of create that.
Like the logistics of moving a music festival, you don't just do that in a day. Like, I don't know if there were stages and whatnot. I have to assume so, but any sort of music festival, and that was the attack happened.
Yeah, it's
early morning.
Sorry, did we call this Woodstock? Because now we're going to move it to San Francisco. Anyway, see you guys tomorrow.
We'll see you tomorrow. Like, that just seems hard. Like, I remember a lot of people were trying to say that the Israelis, or not Israelis, there were some Jewish people in the Al-Aqsa Mosque on the Thursday, and that this was retribution for what happened on the Thursday. I'm like, I don't think they moved that quickly, where they get dissed on the Thursday and they're paragliding in on Friday. I don't know. As far as I understand, though, that was the music festival was like a peace kind of thing. So I think, unfortunately, I think they had it purposely put close to the border of Gaza.
Yeah, or this might have been the conspiracy part of it planned way earlier, potentially.
Potentially.
Yeah, James, I had a question though for James. James, so I'm Russian originally, although now I live in Florida, and just wanted to get your opinion on Putin and whether or not you think that him and China are actually acting in the best interest of their countries, or whether they're all kind of colluding with the WF and just general globalist world capital, that they're all kind of in it together and just kind of playing more an adversarial role in the whole play.
Yeah, thank you for the question. For people who are interested in this, please check out the work that I've done on BRICS, on China, on Putin specifically, on Russia generally, and that I will continue doing. Essentially, long story short, I don't buy into this BRICS multipolar world savior is going to save us from the big bad American empire narrative. I think that they are absolutely in lockstep with the global agenda that is playing out right now. And one perfect example of that is if you were upset about what the Western governments were doing to their populations in the name of the scamdemic and all of the lockdowns and restrictions and all of that, and the mandates and what have you, it was happening in Russia, it was happening in China, people being locked in their homes, etc., and digitally and otherwise. Or if you're concerned about social credit scores, well, where are we getting that idea? Oh, that's right, China. Or if you're concerned about the central bank digital currency, not only, of course, China has the digital yuan now, but hey, guys, Russia just rolled out the digital ruble, and they're putting in the biometric scanners for schools and for bank accounts and what have you. They have a digital passport that's coming. They're talking about the WHO and its important rules. China, Putin and Xi are having conferences where they're talking about the need to accelerate the United Nations Sustainable Development 2030 agenda, et cetera, et cetera. Every single part of the broader global agenda is happening in Russia and China as well.
Yeah, and I didn't mean that to say that he was like a savior or anything like that. It was more of just whether or not they're actually acting like a true adversaries to the system, or actually just part of the system playing a role. So it seems like it's the latter. Okay, well, thank you. Hey, again, I really appreciate what you guys both do. So best of luck.
Appreciate it. Thanks for calling. All right, let's take another call here. Hello, thanks for calling Low Value Mail. Who am I speaking with?
Hey, gentlemen, I'm back. I got another question for the both of you.
Lucky you. Hold on one second. Okay, you're on with James. Go ahead. Hello.
Hey, favorite Family Guy character. Thanks for your time.
Favorite Family Guy character? I don't know. Stewie?
Yeah, sure. I don't know. I don't even know their names that well. But okay, here's the thing. I never liked Family Guy from back in the day, and I had friends who thought it was awesome, and I tried watching, and I thought it was stupid. But I did see a clip of where he's listening to the radio, and it's like a British broadcast, and it's making fun of the sort of the British, and the cricket score was 72-0, and blah blah blah, and the time will be 23 o'clock or whatever, blah blah blah, and it was I thought that was hilarious. That was extremely funny. So I can't say a character, but that's the clip.
Okay, let's take another call here. I think I know who this is. Hello, thanks for calling Low Value Mail. Hello. Hey there. You're on with James. Hello. All right.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. What's up? I was about to hang up on you.
Awesome. Hey, Format, how are you doing, Danny?
Good. How are you?
Great. All right. So, one second. Let me open something up. I prepared for this. This
You're prepared for this. Not very low value of you, but that's fine.
I'm very much prepared for this, but my note-taking app is okay. We're good. We're good to go.
We only have limited time format.
All right. Yeah. So I was just gonna say, Danny, I've told you many times before that you invite some of the best guests ever. Well, this one is the best. Period. It's all downhill from here, Danny. Unless James comes back, or you invite Ryan Christian of The Last American Vagabond. James is a very rare breed of journalist. So I have a question for James, but first I just want to introduce the men properly. There are alternative news sources, and then there's James Corbett, or as I like to call him, the source, because he provides more sources than anyone ever has in the history of journalism, and he inspired much of the truth community to be completely OCD about citing sources. If I told you so was a person, it would be James Corbett. When any truth comes out.
What are you asking him out on a date or something? Let's go with the question format.
Checks in. Don't worry.
I'm trying to introduce your guest. I know he's a little I
already introduced them.
To introduce himself. So say what?
We only have him for 15 more minutes format. Let's go.
All right. When any truth comes out, it first asks James if it's factual enough. When Seymour Hersh writes an article, he thinks to himself, damn, that was good, but not James Corbett good.
All right, format, you're on the clock here, dude. Okay, what's your question for James?
Is there a question? I love this, but let's get to the question.
You're making him blush. Come on.
Yeah, I'll skip a whole paragraph here.
I hope so. Let's
James,
go.
I was a while ago. There was a roundtable talk between you and the gang of a whole bunch of folk, and Sibel Edmonds was among them, and she said something that bothered me to this day. Basically, it was something along the lines of mainstream media is bad. We shouldn't go on mainstream media. I don't even go on RT these days, even if they invite me. And then everyone at the round table sort of agreed. And I felt like for a long time that your position, or like you've actively been not taking opportunities to appear on any sort of like big mainstream show. And considering that all it took for me was just like a clip of you like 10 years ago, in like 2010, I saw just a clip of you on RT. And it set my life on a whole like path towards like consistency and truth and all kinds of cool stuff.
So what's the question format here?
So the question is why don't I take those opportunities or something?
Yeah. Is that the question? Why doesn't he go on these?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's a good question, and it is an important question. You bring up some important points. One of which is that it's not that I'm actively turning. It's not like BBC or CNN is calling me up every day. I'm not actively turning things down. But I do have a sort of principle in mind for especially an establishment media interview that is going 100% is going to be a hit piece. I would accept such an invitation on the condition that I can record the complete conversation on my side and release it myself, completely unedited. Then I would engage in such a hit piece sort of mission so that people can see exactly what I said and the context in which I said it and the way they were trying to set me up. No one's ever taken me up on that. And actually, I was just cleaning out my inbox because I have 14 years of emails now that I should get to that email and it gets shoved down. I was just cleaning out, I think, 2020. Something like that the other day. And I saw an email from a journalist, I think it was Vanity Fair, I want to say, saying, I want to talk to you about 9/11. And I said, sure, awesome, great. Just on the condition that I get to record the conversation and release it to my audience. And he's like, oh, no, you can't do that. So I'm like, well, then I'm not going to talk to you.
And that's because, audio? Again, that's just on the phone?
Yeah, I didn't specify, but I would have been happy with just audio or whatever. But anyway. He wouldn't go for it. So there's a reason why they won't go for something like that. Anyway, let me put it out there for the BBC, CNN, whatever people out there. I absolutely will do it as long as you let me record it on my side. And the reason I say that is because one of a really, really powerful thing that I saw years ago, and people will get all riled up about this. Alex Jones, I remember, was being interviewed on CNN, I want to say. And it was one of those deals where, they took him to the studio and they were interviewing him and they were recording this and they were editing it down for some little news package they were making or something. But he had his cameraman there that recorded his side of the conversation. And the 10 minutes or so that he was talking, it was great in the way that Alex Jones can be great. He was on this bombastic tirade about you murderers at CNN have the blood of 1 million Iraqi children on your hands because of your collaboration with the lies of 9/11, the weapons of mass destruction, blah, blah, blah. He was really, really on a roll and calling him out. Guess how much of that they used in the actual interview? Of course, absolutely none. But I got to see it, and it was really impactful to see him shoving it right in their face. And so I would love to duplicate that. I would love to have the opportunity to do something like that.
You almost have to you need like an alter ego where they think they're bringing on somebody else, and then you go in there kind of trick.
But I've thought about that too with regards to the work that I do. Hey, if I put, sexy bikini babes on the cover images for my videos, I'll get more clicks, that kind of stuff. I mean, you can go down that rabbit hole and chase the clicks and what have you. But to the extent that you bring in lies in order to tell people the truth,
of course,
I think you're starting to sell your soul.
And I'm wondering about the damage. Like, the mainstream media has obviously taken a major credibility hit in the last, say 7-8 years, something like that. But it seems like it's since Trump basically came around. Like, it seems really like when he woke something up in a lot of people with the whole fake news thing, because I think people didn't quite on a larger scale realize like the extent of it, but they're going to have a difficult time navigating this because nobody believes anything they say anymore. Like, especially if, a government's trying to put forth something and they're trying to use mainstream media and you're like, people don't believe that shit anymore. All right. We got another call. One moment, please. Hello. Thanks for calling Low Value Mail. Who am I speaking with? Stephanie from Texas. One moment, please. And you are on, Stephanie from Texas. Go ahead.
Awesome. I'll make it super quick. I couldn't think of anything really awesome to ask, so I was wondering if you had any insight on what the end game is about all the alien disclosure nonsense.
Yeah. Good question. I can only speculate like everyone else, but if people want sort of a more detailed answer, I did a How to Fake an Alien Invasion podcast several years ago that I think is probably relevant because it's been floated and talked about for many years. The idea, well, if there was some sort of threat from the outside, well, we'd all have to come together under global government, blah, blah, blah. So people could see how that could be used. And there have been people that, there was a Canadian journalist, a French Canadian, who talked about this decades ago in Operation Bluebeam, etc. And the more you look into that, the more kind of sketchy the documentation on that is. But at any rate, the idea is there that this could all be some sort of hoax. The one thing, exactly as what you were saying there just a second ago, Danny, the one thing is, whatever the government is saying and whatever the establishment media is saying, I automatically disbelieve by default. It doesn't mean it's necessarily wrong. It just means I'm not going to believe it just because they're saying it.
Right.
And in this case, specifically with disclosure, whatever kind of disclosure is coming through the establishment media and government whistleblowing programs, you better believe there's some sort of agenda to it. So I am highly skeptical about this.
And they really did have a monopoly on that for some time.
Sorry.
Go ahead and go ahead, caller.
I just want to say one thing real quick. I'm actually going to use like the documentaries as jump off points on my homeschooling my son and my daughter. And I really love all the sources and I just really love what you do. And I really appreciate it. And thanks for taking my call. And I love you too, Danny. You rock.
Thank you. Thank you for calling.
Thank you so much. That is the most
night.
gratifying feedback I can get because this is why I do it. And the idea that people are helping to spread this to the next generation, which is probably the most important thing people can be doing with information. As old, graying adults, we can get very cynical and jaded about all of this process. But the real point is for the battle for the minds of the children who are growing up in this world. And so I love to hear that.
Okay, we got another call. One moment, please. Hello. Thanks for calling Low Value Mail. Who am I speaking with? Hey. Hello.
I'd like to spend the last.
Hey, you got a really bad connection there, man. Hello.
Can you hear me better?
Not really. A little bit. You hear me, James?
Maybe.
Can you hear me
Give it
now?
a shot.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
I can hear you. I'd like to spend the last few moments of James' time just reading his Wikipedia page from birth on, if that's all right.
No, I don't want to do that. Do you have a question for him?
I'm kidding.
Okay.
Yep. I feel like that was a joke.
I have some mild autists who watch this show, so you never know when they're serious. So, and mild is generous.
Given what we've heard tonight, I thought it might be true. So there you go.
You had us,
right,
man. You had
right.
us.
No, I was joking. I feel like maybe the last 5, maybe the last 10 years, it's been a lot of social media warfare going on. What do you think is the best way to navigate just all the different things? I mean, referencing like Ryan Long's sketch he did about the dead babies, and my wife's sending me stuff every day on like, check this out. How do you filter through all that? Everyone's sharing messages on what side they're supporting, and obviously a lot of it's contradicting themselves. But how do how do you navigate social media warfare?
Yeah, maybe you're asking the wrong person, because essentially I've retreated from it. I just don't want to take part in it. And I do that for a number of reasons. One is that I've never been interested in getting in online arguments and debates with people in forums and what have you. I've just never been interested in that. So getting into social media conversations and debates and what have you has never interested me. I've never found, I don't go online to find friends. I'm not looking for, social validation online or anything like that. So I've never been interested in the things that people are generally interested in social media for, and I certainly could not care less. Actually, I'll say could care less just to piss off the grammar Nazis, but I could care less about Instagram feeds and, like posting pictures of your vacation or what you had for breakfast, any of that. So I have no... my response is to put it to one side, and who cares what's happening on social media? But a lot of people do care, and that might be part of the problem. So let me take
you're actually quite popular on TikTok.
Sorry,
like I said, you are actually your videos are quite popular on TikTok, though. Like the thing is like you're not on social media as you, but your content gets repurposed.
Fair enough,
and it does make the rounds.
I've often thought the only reason I have ever started a social media account or ever would is just, hey, here's my podcast, here's my work. I would, that's it. I'm not there to have conversations.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be
how do we filter through the garbage that is the nonstop 24/7 psychic assault that is social media? Is kind of, in a sense, it answers its own question, because it is a 24/7 nonstop psychic assault. Maybe we shouldn't be subjecting ourselves to that. And, it's extremely unpopular to say, okay, everyone just get off of social media. I know that's not going to happen to a large extent. Right. But at the very least, being conscious of our use of social media and our approach to it and what we are using it for and how much time we are engaging with it rather than just doing the infinite scroll. We have to start being more mindful with our use of technology. And I don't have the wonderful... here's this 7-step plan of how to do this. But I think we at least need to start thinking and talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've thought about, Danny's tweet the other day about the coexist bumper sticker. Maybe we should try that out. Maybe, I don't know. We obviously tend to lean on comedy as a way to kind of navigate this stuff. But even if it's not like from your friends, even if it's just from pages and you don't know what's true, what's not, obviously being skeptical of everything from here on out kind of goes without saying. But it is a difficult spot to navigate what's true and what should be taken into account or what is just nonsense.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a healthy skepticism is definitely good, and definitely as little time. But, obviously social media can be good. It can be bad. You can waste your whole day on there, but you can also find out cool stuff as well. So you're just...
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying people have to delete it all and never go on it again, but just be mindful of what you are doing on it and what you're getting out of it.
I mean, I'll tell you, as someone who I'm a comedian, so my livelihood to a degree, I need to just do certain things on social media. And I find myself, I'll go on there to do something. I'll be like, I have a mindfully doing something. And then 30 minutes later, I was like, what was I doing?
Exactly. I'll tell you the moment. I remember. Yeah, because I was thinking
or you hop
about
on with the task to do something, but you forget what it is after you click on it.
Right. Yeah. No, I remember I was thinking about getting off of Twitter, and I was thinking about it seriously for some time. But I remember the moment that I knew, oh yeah, I'm off. This is done. Was when I was out here in Japan in the park playing with my kids in the park, and out of habit, took the fondle slab out, started scrolling through the Twitter feed, and I remember consciously realizing, like, what am I doing? Why did I do this? How did I didn't even consciously think about it. I just started, I wonder what's on Twitter. And that was the moment I knew, oh, I'm not in control of this. It's in control of me. I better take control back. So I said, bye-bye to Twitter.
I literally do that 20 times a day. Unfortunately. Yeah. All right. Thanks, caller. Appreciate it.
Yep.
All right. I want to be respectful of your time. You got to go, James. But hopefully we can have you back sometime if you ever for a full show. If you ever are so inclined, that'd be really cool because you're a badass, and I think people have a lot more questions for you. I mean, the phone lines have been ringing off the hook. We only got to talk to a few people, but so people can find you thecorbettreport.com. Sign up for your newsletter, all your podcasts and whatnot. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll have you back on soon.
Yep. Thank you. Take care.
Take care. Bye. All right, everybody. That has been James Corbett. one moment, please. We are going to get our next guest, Daniel Bordman. Very cool of James Corbett to come on. Unfortunately, he didn't have. I'm sorry that you guys have to see how the sausage is made here. Let me just wait a minute while we get. Sorry, just give me a second here while we get Daniel Bordman coming on. And we'll get to him. I have to pee really badly, but I'm not going to. Should I wait? No, I'm not going to wait. But what am I trying to do here? Okay, we'll do this while we wait for Daniel to come on. Oops, that's weird. I didn't know how to manage two people at one time. So what am I doing here? Give me 1 second here. I'm kind of spazzing out here a little bit. How do I move this thing away? It's very low value. Oh, you know what? It doesn't matter. Daniel Bordman, here he is. Daniel Bordman, what's up, buddy?
Hello. Sorry about that.
How you doing?
For some reason, my Zoom needed to update, despite the fact that I do 8,000 of these a day.
That's okay. It happens. My life is literally all just production nightmares and all sorts of things, and just is what it is. How you doing, buddy? How you been?
Doing well. Bit of a crazy life the last while, but other than wars, I can't complain.
So me and Daniel, we first met in doing comedy in Toronto, and then you've gone on to become a bit of a journalist, geopolitical analyst, India expert. So for a lot of people who don't know, there was a big, maybe give people the quick little rundown of the whole India thing, which, by the way, this Israel thing, huge for Trudeau. Nobody's talking shit about any of that stuff.
Yeah, he got off the hook on that one.
This gave everybody's off the hook about everything.
Yeah, it's quite thing. Like even Indian media, which was full steam ahead, like on the Trudeau thing, like switched to Israel, Palestine, and the short of it is there was what the Trudeau calls a Sikh religious activist, what the Indian government calls a terrorist and a leader of the Khalistan Tiger Force, who was killed 3 months ago by, someone assassinated him. And the Liberals decided to blame the Indian government publicly and exile a diplomat over it. And right after that happened, I said, oh, that's a bad idea. This is going to go really, really, really poorly because no one really understands just how bad the Khalistani problem is in Canada.
What is the Khalistani population? And they're basically, we've talked about this on the Boys Cast, but they're like separatists, right?
Yeah, they're Sikh separatists. They're a fringe minority. They're a super fringe minority in India. They're a fringe minority in Canada, bigger in Canada than they are in the rest of the world. But it's like, less than 10% of Sikhs in Canada would be Khalistanis. The other ones are militantly anti-Khalistani. But this is a movement that was sort of created by Pakistan back in the 70s, really ramped up in the 80s, started doing a bunch of terrorist attacks in the 80s in India, kidnappings, bombings.
Was that the famous Canadian terror attack?
Yes, it was a Khalistani one. Yeah.
By the way, just sorry to cut you off. Guys, phone lines are closed again. I'll reopen them in about 10 minutes or so. So go ahead.
Yeah. The biggest terrorist attack in Canadian history was the Air India bombing, where some Khalistanis blew up an airplane full of Hindus. No one was ever really punished for it in Canada. Tawinder Parmar, the mastermind of it, was actually taken out by the Indian authorities in the 90s. So
killed?
No one ever
faced
when you
justice? Say taken out, he was killed?
Yeah, he was killed in a shootout with the Indian police in 1992, I believe. So Canada never punished anyone for the terrorist attack, and there's crazy stories of it's a pretty shameful bungling of our national security on that. And since then, the Khalistani movement has only grown and grown and grown. People might remember that Justin Trudeau invited a convicted terrorist with him to India the first time he went in 2018. This guy Jasper Atwal, who was convicted in Canadian courts of attempting to assassinate an Indian minister. So India has a big problem with Canada, which is we have quite literally terrorist training camps on our soil with people openly planning to commit violence against India. And there's, India's claiming that these people are flying to Pakistan, going into India, assassinating Indians, going back to Pakistan, flying to Canada for a home base, and it's created some geopolitical problems. So, when we accuse the Indian government of taking out Hardeep Singh Nijjar, without presenting any evidence of that claim, I was like, this is not going to go well because the Indian government's just not going to take this because this isn't the Indian government of 10 years ago. They used to be ruled by like Congress Party, which was just like Gandhi, 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 not a Gandhi, Gandhi, Gandhi. Like it's like Trudeau's, just a bunch of people getting famous off their name, who've been pretty soft on a lot of issues and quite appeasement focused. And then you have the new Modi government, which is not like that at all. So I kind of made a 14-minute video, the next day, going like, okay, Canada, India 101. Here's what you need to know, and here's how screwed we are. That went like mega viral. In India, started this sort of Daniel goes on Indian media campaign.
Yeah, you're going on like India TV like 10 times a day, basically.
Yeah, it was at the point, like at the height of it, where I was like saying no to CNN India because like I was doing other things at the time, and then they would have to ask me like, who else can go on TV? So I would I said my colleague Wyatt Claypool can go when I'm not there. So it was like it was it was a whole thing.
And so there was a theory that the guy, that guy Hardeep Najjar, whatever. If people don't know, you can look it up. But it was a big scandal in Canada, and it was a pretty big international story too. But so was he like a government, because there's the whole story with how he tried to get citizenship. He was like denied. Basically, he had all these issues. Then he like got a marriage. He got married for the purpose of getting citizenship. He also was denied, and then he just eventually wound up with citizenship. Is there any truth to the fact that it's like he was basically working for CSIS or something to the effect?
So I mean, not for CSIS. I mean, the accusation put out by, I can't remember, TV News 9 or Republic TV, I can't remember. One of the Indian channels basically said there was an MP. So they accused the Liberal MP from Surrey, BC, so Surrey is the hub of the Khalistan movement, accused him of writing a letter of recommendation for Hardeep Singh Najjar to get him in. And this particular MP has a long history of writing letters for people you should not be writing letters for, like a convicted Pakistani gang member, like a notorious international criminal. He gone to bat for, and like who MPs write letters for isn't like direct public knowledge. So this had to be source. So we still don't have it fully confirmed there, but the accusation from India is Liberal MP from Surrey ended up getting him citizenship, because we know he was denied twice. Like he was on watch lists, and like the accusation of the Indian government is he was the leader of the Khalistan Tiger Force, which they list as a terrorist organization. It's an offshoot of the Barba Khalsa, which blew up the Air India bombing. And well, Hardeep Singh Najjar's supporters have sort of confirmed this, because we've seen now multiple videos and reports that his picture is up as a leader of the Khalistan Tiger Force, which is, if you don't know anything about the Khalistanis, it's a picture of a lion with two swords going through it, because the Khalistan movement is not the most intellectually superior and sophisticated movement you will find. It's again, like if you know anything about like Sikh history, the Sikh religion kind of started during the Islamic invasions of India, where they went, okay, this pacifism stuff is going to get us all killed. So everyone grab a knife and defend your family. So the origins of Sikhism is quite rooted in fighting off fundamentalist Islam. So the Khalistanis, who are palling around in Pakistan, a country that has pretty much ethnically cleansed all their Sikhs, and attacking India is suspect. Not only that, but the Grand Sikh Kingdom they want to recreate to form Khalistan. The capital of that was in Lahore, Pakistan. But they want no territory from Pakistan. Only the Indian region of Punjab is what they claim. So the whole movement, if you look at it, is pretty clearly, ISI funded and created. It's been allowed to grow and fester in Canada, where they bring kids into these gurdwaras and radicalize them. I've seen the literature from these Brampton gurdwaras where they literally openly praise terrorists. There'll be things like lessons for kids where they'll go over different shaheeds, which is Punjabi for martyrs, and they'll literally talk about his life. Like he grew up here, and then in 1994 he flew to India and he killed this person and this person, and that was great. Then he came back to Canada, and then he went again to India and he killed this person and this person, and that was great. Then in 96 he went back to India and killed this person and this person. But in 1997 he was sold out by one of his brothers, and he was killed by the Indian police, and this is a great crime, and who's going to avenge him? Like this is literally going on.
Yeah, and so where does the Canada-India relations stand with it now? Like, it's just like kind of swept under the rug.
Oh no, they're still mad. Oh, India's
but
still
like, is there any actual like actual blowback from it, or?
Yeah. So the visas have been canceled and put on hold, so you can't get new visas to go to India. And they're also recommending that international students no longer choose Canada. So about 90% of the university incomes comes from foreign students. Like half of that is students from India. So you're going to see the economic shockwaves, at least in the universities, over the next few years, as their funding and cash cow gets severely choked. And there's also potential like trade implications. Like India's our 9th largest trading partner in Canada. There's like a massive deal signed by Saskatchewan farmers to send grain there. Like all of that's in jeopardy because the Indian government sees this as a massive security risk.
Right.
For good reason.
All right. So let's change topics here. Let's talk about what's going on in Israel. I'm curious what your thoughts are, because there's a lot of I don't know if you caught how much you caught of the first half of the show, if anything.
I was watching most of it. I started watching 10 minutes in.
Okay, so there's some weird stuff going on, obviously, to some degree. Where do you stand? I think with like first off the hospital. Like I'm sure you've been following it. Where are we even at with it currently? I feel like it's been changing every minute. Like
I've seen some pretty good videos, like a full length that people have been able to put forward that this is a rocket misfiring and falling on a hospital. I mean, you also like again, like there's a problem where we just believe everything Gaza officials say. Remember, Gaza officials or Ministry of Health, that's all Hamas, right? Yeah. Hamas is the government, and they have a history. I mean, if you look at the fighting between Israel and PIJ, like from last year, Israel, like when they once killed an innocent child who was 33 years old with a full beard, and he was part of the Lion's Den organization, a terrorist group. His photos were plastered all around, full beard, 2 AK-47s in each hand, like vest on, like glorious martyr. He was part, and then they said, look at the terrorist. Look at the kid, the child that was killed. So they were using a
photo of a 33-year-old man, and they're just like, this is a child?
But this is what they do, right? Again, because Hamas counts their own casualties. So everyone killed in these conflicts, whether it's from a missile that short fires from Hamas or PIJ into Gaza Strip or a missile from Israel, everyone who's killed is, in English, an innocent child who had nothing to do with anything. And then often in Arabic, their posters are then plastered within their own internal media of saying, glory to the martyr, he died fighting the Jews, we encourage you to do this. And then his mom gets on TV and says, I'm so proud of my son for achieving martyrdom and all this, and we hope more fighting and bombing and killing, blah, 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 blah. But you put the lie out once, the people who want to believe it go, and a lie gets halfway around the world before the truth has a chance to get its pants on, the old adage there. So I'm skeptical of the Gaza claims.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought because Israel seems to be losing the PR fight, at least as far
it's been losing for decades.
But I'm it's really losing right now. Like when even though the fact is not the fact, but the fact that they, at least in this instance, were attacked first. Right. And then everybody wants to go back and forth, and they want to fucking pick whatever date and time they want to make their point, and vice versa or whatever. But they're definitely losing it. So for them to go bomb a hospiel and kill, what's the death toll at? Possibly near 1,000 people. I'm just first principles. I was just there's no way they did that on purpose. At least that was my opinion. Could have been accidental.
Israel's smart enough not to bomb a hospital on purpose. I mean, they're trying. I mean, they know it's going to happen, right? Also, with 1,000 casualties in a hospital with 80 beds, the hospital has 80 beds. And listen, I'm not saying they're going to be packed to the gills, maybe overstaffed, but again, this isn't Toronto General Hospital sized hospital. This is a hospital with 80 beds. So doesn't mean it's a legit target or anything like that. But I'm just saying, this is the size of the hospital. These are the casualties being reported immediately. I think we should all keep some fog of war skepticism. But
and I agree. No, and I'm going to reopen the phone lines in a few minutes, everybody, if anybody has a question for Daniel. So what do you make of, because I think James was the same. I think I was the same. How were they able to just do this? The
initial attack.
The initial,
yeah. So I can listen, we're not going to know for a while, but it's actually not as surprising to me as many, because this is the doomsday scenario I've sort of been warning about for years, to deaf ears. I'll shout out my family. But I was saying, listen, if Biden releases billions of dollars to the Islamic Republic of Iran and Hamas gets enough high-grade wet rocket technology to breach the Iron Dome, they could instigate a doomsday scenario. So people don't often understand how the Iron Dome functions. One, it's designed to take out low-grade rockets aimed specifically at high population density areas. So it's not something that just takes out anything moving in the air, right? So people saying, why isn't Israel sending the Iron Dome to Ukraine? Because it would malfunction within half a second. It couldn't do anything about Russian artillery. Not a thing, right? It wouldn't work in that, right? It can take out these homemade rockets that Hamas is fashioning. So the Iron Dome isn't meant to take out paragliders. That. Two, you have a Jewish holiday, and the Israelis have been caught being hubristic before and thinking they were sort of indefensible. We mentioned the Yom Kippur War, where they didn't really believe some of the rumblings, and two, like, it's not the craziest strategy what Hamas did. If you look at like how Canadians were successful in World War I during the Battle of Vimy Ridge, it was when Arthur Currie and the Canadians, sort of used combined arms tactics. The most advanced one is, we know, there's like the creeping barrage, where you would use artillery to screen the advance of the infantry, that when the artillery stopped, the infantry would already be on top of the trenches and you could instigate a break there. Like that this is sort of the same general tactic Hamas used, where they had higher grade rockets because they managed to get it off the black market from either Ukraine or Afghanistan or whatever, terrorism's funded by the black market. So you had high grade rocket technology where you had a breach of the Iron Dome, and they knew that the Israeli response, when the Iron Dome is overwhelmed, is not start flinging bombs back, right? This is not what the Israelis do. Any other country, any other army, when someone shoots at them, they shoot back. That's not how Israel functions. They usually have to wait about 24 to 48 hours, hunkered down, to build up international support. So the Biden can say, you know what, I built enough support in caucus. You're allowed to fire back at a few Hamas members. Go for it. But again, this is what they knew would happen. So you had lower military preparedness. You had this situation where the Iron Dome was breached. So all the Israelis went inside. You probably had help from, most likely the IRGC intelligence, maybe Russia. We're not sure, right? Because these are the islands. We're not exactly sure. But clearly there was some outside intelligence helping Hamas do this. And you had soft points in the fence. It wasn't like this massive concrete wall. Like if you had bulldozers, you could get through the fence, instigate a few breaches, drive trucks with a bunch of, militants and terrorists on the back of it, and they spread into Israel and create chaos spreading out all over the country. It's a small country. So you have all these mass reports, like, why wasn't the IDF there? Because, well, there's hundreds of reports coming from all over the country, all the time. It's chaos. So you could see Hamas took advantage of knowing exactly how the Israelis would react. They knew they would go inside into bomb shelters where they all were with that, because Israel has opened up thousands of work permits to people of Gaza. How many of those people were sympathetic with Hamas and just biding their time doing reconnaissance on Israeli soldiers, giving like the names and the families and the things? Like, a lot of that information came from the people working in Israel from the Gaza Strip. So you had, not to say everyone was doing that, but you had enough people who were working in Israel who then went back to Gaza, who could easily provide this information. You have outside intelligence, and you have this sort of, conflict and combat is often about momentum, right? Whoever gains momentum has a significant advantage. So yes, it could be gained back, but this initial breach, like once you got people and trucks going in Israel in all these chaotic manners, like chaos was unleashed. It was impossible to contain.
I mean, it is what it seemed like.
Right. And you can go like, oh, conspiracy, like, okay, we can find out in years, like, was there someone there? What's the utility of this? Did Israel want this to unite? Whatever. But at the end of the day, there were hundreds of people who were more than happy to live stream rape, murder, torture, lighting people on fire, calling people's families on their phones, calling mom or dad to torture their family members and then execute them in front of them. Like, there still is a malevolence among the people of Hamas, PIJ, and whoever that really drove this. Like that's not really debatable. Like, was there maybe a double agent on the inside who gave up something? Maybe. Like, we're not going to know the answers to these questions. But in terms of like, how could this happen, right? Like, again, paragliders aren't going to be taken down by the Iron Dome. And it was sort of this new thing where they had them sort of, come in. I've heard reports these aren't the hardest things to learn how to fly. Not everyone flew them successfully. Like, there is a video of one of the paragliders that's like going straight into the electrical wire and killing himself that way. But like it's general combined arms warfare and using artillery to screen infantry. And then if your target is not military, but just mass chaos and destruction and, a civilian massacre, right? You just need to find people and kill them. It's not like, they had to.
Yeah, if you're just trying to basically terrorize them, then it's
right.
not
This
that
is
hard.
just terrorism and mass chaos.
Yeah.
So
hold on a second there. We got a call actually. I'm gonna take this. Hello. Thanks for calling Low Value Mail. Who am I speaking with? You got to turn down your radio there.
Oh yeah. I got you. 1 second. Is that better now?
Yeah, that's better. One moment, please. All right, you're on with Daniel Bordman. Go ahead.
Hey, what's going on, Daniel? This is I was trying to call earlier in because I had the same question for James. So I am from I originate from the other side of the world, and anytime all these conflicts pop up, everything that's on the other side of the prime meridian, I try and explain to my American friends, like my West and everyone else who's Western, is these people in the East, and especially now that we're talking about Israel and Palestine, they just have a completely different mentality. And I'm just trying to understand, how can Westerners, and I want to say Westerners, I mean Americans, Canadians, Western Europeans, how can they understand the mentality of because for instance, the interaction between the Jew and the Arab in the context of Israel? Because it's I grew up in Houston, and we had I had Jewish friends, and some of them were Israeli. And it's I immediately get that sense. And the same thing, I had Arab and Islamist friends, and I've been around their families and their parents, but they have that same mentality that I grew up in the household where it's everyone's stubborn, everyone's hard-headed, and the sense of compassion or being understanding and listening that you see in Western values, it just does not apply over there. Well, what's it going to take for the Westerners to understand that there is no such thing as following laws and rules?
Did you say no such thing? Oh, I thought you said falling in love. No, you said following laws.
I think I get the question.
No. How can the Westerners understand that the people who are in charge in that part of the world are those who enforce their might through will and violence, and we are the top dog. We come around, we swing, we hit, and it's if you ain't hitting us back and taking us out, then we're the ones in charge. And also the whole we're stubborn, we don't no negotiations, no nothing. Okay, what it is, politely putting, those kind of people drive a hard bargain.
Right.
And it's not applicable in the Western mindset. How can it become understandable if not practical and applicable within Western society?
Right. And does it even need to be? But anyways, go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, I think this is a good question, something I talk about. Listen, I don't want to ditch the Western mindset. I think Western values are a lot better than Middle Eastern values in a lot of ways. So I'm happy Westerners have Western values. But you're absolutely right that the lack of understanding and the inability to understand that other cultures viewed things differently. I always say, when it comes to the Middle East, diversity is not our strength. Strength is your strength, and weakness is weakness. There's one rule to foreign policy and geopolitics, really. Might makes right. And there's a reason why Bashar al-Assad in Syria was able to kill more Palestinians than Israel did in 10 years, and no one criticized it. Is because if Palestinians spoke up about what happened at Yarmouk, he would take their family and murder them in horrible ways. Now, I'm not saying that's the solution at all. I'm just sort of explaining why you don't see Muslim countries complaining about Uyghur imprisoned in China so much, because they know if they speak up against the Chinese, the CCP comes down hard on them, and there's consequences here. So one silver lining here is I actually think a lot more people have woken up to these mentalities and what's going on, because yes, while there is crazy anti-Israel stuff and anti-Semites have gone down the rabbit hole here, a lot of good, decent people saw the videos that Hamas live streamed and were rightfully horrified, and I think came to an understanding that this was not about Palestinian human rights, not about settlements or this or that or whatever. It was a war of genocidal ideology, which is what Hamas has said it was from day one. You have to read their charter. So my advice, there's two things. One, the corruption of Western academia is a lot to blame here, right? Moral relativism, these academics who want to sort of prop up their own Western quasi ideologies, right? And they have to believe that they're the great defenders of the minorities, so they impose their, center left or neo-communist, depending where they are, ideologies onto these people and don't actually treat them for what they are. I think like that system needs to be challenged. And two, I think it's incumbent on, individuals to educate themselves at the end of the day. Like, I can't take 7 billion people and, show them, a press conference in the Arab world or what like the Islamic Republic of Iran is actually saying. It's sort of incumbent on a lot of people to, find this out for themselves. But I mean, the shock and horror of what happened on the 7th might do a lot of it. And the only answer I think we really have control over is the dismantling of a lot of these flawed ideologies. Anything in a social science, like, I mean, the predominant theories in social science when it comes to how we structure societies or how we look at them in the more relativistic ways, like these need to be challenged, because this is a big part of this problem and many others. And one of the things it does is it doesn't foster understanding of these people. Like, again, most Middle Eastern professors, if they're white, have no concept of what anyone in the Middle East thinks about anything.
Yeah, just
academic.
I will use academic as a term.
I mean, I saw this. I mean, first off, the whole, I call this like a midair collision in a circus when there's like intersectionality problems, like talking about Queers for Palestine. I mean, that's like the most basic, like surface level, like people can't understand. But I saw the same, like, what is it, when the Ukraine war started popping off, like in first off, with the whole humanity, okay, what I'm talking about is when this most recent thing popped off with Russia and Ukraine, there was talks on German state television of like, should we be still affording human rights to Russians? Like, they were literally like, this is Germans talking about, should we still consider Russians human beings in the context of combat? But this is at the same time, since I've been following that whole conflict since 2014. They've been doing this whole thing, like how to mention Hamas, like they'll grab somebody's phone, then go through their contacts, like, oh, here's your mom, here's your wife, here's your, sister, girlfriend, or whatever. And they'll just like basically live stream like, oh, hey, ha ha ha, this is, your loved one. We're stepping on them, pissing on them, and boom, 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 cut them up. And yeah, that shit's been happening all over the Eastern world and the Western world. And like the whole thing of, but what I think, like, the only way most people in America could like combat being involved with this is being like, I just want to put my dollar out, because America sends money to both Israel and the UN gives aid to Palestine. I'm just trying to figure out, like, what is it going to take for Americans to become completely isolationist, where they're like, you know what, we're done, let them figure it out. Like they're like, everyone can say all they want about like, let the men fight it out. Putin said that. He's like, this shouldn't be about women and children. Let the men fight it out, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, I just don't want my money going to it. Yeah. And then the other part is,
hold on, let me give Daniel a second to answer that first part before you.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
what do you think about the interventionist case by the United States?
Listen, I'm not an isolationist. I think isolationism is doomed to create catastrophes, and I don't think you can isolate yourself from the world. Like, listen, Qatar, Islamic Republic of Iran, the CCP, the Russians, all of them are investing billions of dollars in undermining America through education, through propaganda, through this and that. And listen, that doesn't mean grab a gun, start killing people, right? I don't think American troops on the ground in Ukraine is what I'm asking for, but isolationist foreign policy is doomed to fail. And if you take a full-on isolationist approach, the odds that China goes into Taiwan in 2027 increase dramatically, right? So
what is the significance of 2027's?
That's when China says they want to do it by.
Oh, okay.
This is the CCP line, like, Taiwan 2027, like they're quite open. Like, we're gonna, this is our plan. Our invasion plan is scheduled for 2027. Okay. So that's the date they're aiming for. And part of good foreign policy and reducing war is deterrence. And I think a lot of times we live in a world, and a lot, hype up, where we confuse deterrence for escalation. So my example of this is the US, who Biden hasn't done a lot of good foreign policy, but it was smart to put major destroyers in the Mediterranean. This reduces the chances that Hezbollah in Lebanon and Syria get involved in this war, and it drags into a wider regional conflict. If America shows that, hey, there's literally nothing we're going to do, we're just going to sit everything out, you invite the forces of chaos to sort of fill in that vacuum. And listen, I get it for the Americans. You feel like it sucks. Why do we have to be world police? Well, because you're the best country in the world. Like it's the most powerful economy.
Well, I can agree with that, but in just what you said. But here's the thing: I can understand America and American private individuals understanding America's security interests, for instance, for Panama, because of the Panama Canal. I can never get a clear outline of what is America's true intentions for this, providing security and material and funding of any sort of that kind to Israel. And it's like, bro, I'm a Jew, but I was just like, bro, you hit my pocket. Like, I'm the Jew being Jewed by a Jew. Like,
listen, I get this.
This is a dreidel of Inception, or Inception of dreidalism. Like,
it's like when the dreidel spins too fast.
The dreidel, the thing. Like, what I will say is, American aid to Israel is different than American aid to other countries. So, like, when you give $1 billion to Egypt, that money just goes to Egypt. Most of the aid to Israel, especially
that's all from 1970. Was it 1979 or 1973 when they gave back
74? It was right. It was Kissinger said, okay, in for a penny, in for a pound. If we're going to back Israel, might as well just give them the weapons to do this. But military aid to Israel is actually.
But the money also to Egypt. Well, it was like $3 billion.
And Jordan, America gives lots of foreign aid to lots of countries. And listen, I think foreign aid is a bad idea in a lot of cases. But the Israeli foreign aid, it should be noted, it comes with conditions and strings. The military aid America gives to Israel has to spend over 90% of that money on American military technology. So it is funneled back into the American economy. You could say, if you're Raytheon and Lockheed and the military industrial complex, sure. Like, listen, they're not perfect. I'm not saying everything that Raytheon does is lovely, right? I've seen the sketches you guys have made, but it should be pointed out that Israel is the only country that is given aid on the condition that it has to be reinvested in American companies.
That's true. There's no other countries that have conditions.
I mean, one of those reinvestments is the pharmaceutical industry. Bro, Israel loved making Klonopins. I get that.
Listen, there comes large entanglements with foreign aid are like a bad idea. And like when we give corn to other places, like that ends up causing starvation problems. Like foreign aid is like a massive money laundering feel-good scheme that doesn't help as many people as it claims to. So I'm not out here like simping for, massive foreign aid increasements, but it's sort of a conversation that needs a little bit of nuance here and there, because each one is different. And like, we want to reduce it, which I'm totally in favor of doing. Like, I like there's, it's not helping.
I mean, it's such an insignificant sum of money too. Like, in terms of Israel's GDP, like, they don't need it. Certainly, they don't need the money.
No, I mean, and there's conversations in Israel that they don't want to be reliant on U.S. foreign policy and foreign money, because like a lot of that handicapped Israel, right? These 24 hours that they have to wait to respond to rockets, a large part of that is sort of contingent on keeping American support high, right? And
like their GDP in 2021 was $488 billion. They get 3 point something. It's nothing. Like they don't need it.
Listen, we can, if I'm in favor of cutting American foreign aid to Israel, if America cuts all its foreign aid to all the terrorists who are fighting Israel, like that would be fair. Like, I think that's something everyone get a hold of.
Caller, I'm going to let you go. We're going to take another call here. 1 second here, Daniel. Hello, thanks for calling Low Value Mail.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, what's up? 1 second, please. And you're on with Daniel Bordman. Go ahead.
Hey, what's going on, Danny and Daniel? This is Conspiracy Extremist. First, Danny, I got to tell you, your Twitter, it keeps me laughing all day, man. It's lit. You're killing it.
Thanks,
Dan. I love
Appreciate it.
All right. So I got a question. Hey, Daniel, are you also part of the Chosen, like Danny?
Yes, he is. Look at his face.
Yehudi, Ken.
Look at his face.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay, so this is good because my question, I proposed this idea or question to Twitter Spaces and it didn't go well, but it was a bunch of goyim like me, so this is perfect. All right. So the last week we've been seeing on Twitter just awful stuff, man, and a bunch of rhetoric about Hamas. We should glass Hamas, and they're subhuman. They're like animals, and it's all good stuff. But my idea was that I haven't heard, and I want to see what you guys think. What if we glass Israel, we turn the Gaza Strip into a Hamas petting zoo, and then the Israelis can charge a small fee, the Israelis can charge a small fee to the Palestinian kids to come to the petting zoo. Good idea, bad idea.
Wait, we're gonna do all of Israel?
Yeah,
I was thinking that there should, because this is like essentially a biblical issue, and I have thought that this is a biblical issue. They should deal with it in a biblical manner, which is essentially they go full King Solomon. They go, look, neither of you guys can have this. Both get out, and then whoever says, and I'm gonna whatever, like blow up, cutting the kid in half, essentially.
Well, that's the 1947 partition plan. They did that. The Jews said yes. The Arabs said genocide. And then,
well, there you go. They already tried it.
That's already that was 1922 and 23, and then it happened again in 1947. So we've been there, done that. Tried it, failed.
Is there any way? Do you see, Daniel, any way out of just a never-ending conflict in this region?
I think Hamas needs to be thoroughly defeated and reset the balance here.
Is it true that Israel funds Hamas, or to a degree? I've seen some things
okay, so what happened is, yes, Israel had in the 80s when Hamas was coming up. You have to understand, during this time, the PLO was a dominant faction, Yasser Arafat. And the PLO, again, the Munich things, they killed the Israelis, the suicide bombings, the assassinations. The mentality and the open statement from the PLO at the time was destroy Israel and genocide. They were pretty clear. So when they saw Hamas as a potential destabilizing force and maybe a counterbalance, they didn't sort of stop the rise of Hamas and even let a few of their more radical clerics kind of get into the Gaza Strip, because the thought was, and ended up blowing up in their face, but the thought was essentially, okay, if we could have another political power rising in the Palestinian territories, maybe there'll be some counterbalance, and through that, we could find a partner for peace. They ended up enabling the people who were more radical in the PLO, because Hamas went from, we're not just going to kill everyone in Israel, we now want a global genocide of Jews and total world domination. So not really a step in the right direction, but this is the context in which you could say, well, people say, well, Israel created Hamas, it's an Israeli creation. It's like, okay, let's add some context here. I don't really think Israel's like, great, we have these Islamic radicals on our border now with rockets. So this is exactly what we wanted. It was because the PLO was dangerous, and they realized they could not bargain with Arafat in any way, and he had no willingness for any type of peace that wasn't genocidal. They allowed sort of a Hamas to try and become a counterbalance in the region, and then that did not go.
How does one start a terrorist organization? Is there a new Hamas that's kind of like 6 guys sitting around a kitchen table right now?
Yeah, there kind of is. These happen all the time. Hamas and PIJ aren't the only terrorist organizations in the Palestinian territories, right? The PFLP, they're more communist, but you have these offshoots of offshoots of al-Nusra will pop up and here and there, right?
And are they all just jockeying for whoever's kind of funding all these things? They're kind of just basically trying to get
in a sense they would be jockeying for Iranian funding, but a lot of them are legit religious radicals, and they have slight religious philosophical differences with Hamas. And because of that, they start their own terrorist group, right? So, if you look at any sort of hardline ideological movement, even I brought up the Calistanis before, who seem to have a united thing, but even within their siege of the Golden Temple, there was a lot of infighting, and there still is a lot of infighting in the Calistanis. When one of the reasons I was so upset that we did this over when a Calistani leader got killed is Calistani gang members get killed all the time in Canada. Just a week before the big kerfuffle, another Calistani gang leader was killed, probably by a different Calistani gang, because they're involved in criminal organizations, and there's also ideological schisms within them. So, a lot of, yes, Al-Shabaab, Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, Boko Haram, Hamas, all share similar ideologies, and a lot of them are rooted in Muslim Brotherhood philosophy, but there's slight differences among them that, can schism the group. Like this was the formation of Al-Qaeda, right? The Bin Laden faction ended up killing the Palestinian faction because, there's one faction that wanted to start with the Israel thing, and Bin Laden's faction wanted to start in the Philippines because they were mad at the Philippines for whatever reason, and then they got mad at East Timor separating from Indonesia, and that's where they started. So, when you have hardline religious radicals and there's slight philosophical disagreements, you can get a sort of schism terrorist group that pops up any time. So there is more than just defeating Hamas here. You do have to defeat sort of the ideology of jihad in a way, and that's sort of the task Israel has to go on is to deal a significant moral blow to the jihadis is really what I think the operational goal should be. It's hard to say that, to the public because that's, you want a more clear operational goal of destroying Hamas. But I think we've seen, like, Hamas has called the global days of jihad. There's the attacks in Paris. There was the attack in Belgium the other night. There's.
Have they found the person from Belgium the other night?
I think they did find him.
They were looking for him.
I think they did. I mean, I could check that, but I didn't think.
It's all good. All right, Color, I'm gonna let you go. It sounds like no to the petting. Sounds like no to the petting zoo. All right, we're gonna take the next call here. Hello, thanks for calling Low Value Mail.
Hey, Danny and Daniel, it's Artem.
Hey, Artem. Yeah, 1 second. We're just.
Hey, I got a question about.
All right, you're on with Daniel. Go ahead.
Oh, hey, so Dan, I got a question about India. I think I was listening to Ray Dalio, and he was saying that at a time when we got two major world powers fighting, the West and the East, that it's good to kind of invest in the people that are involved in the fight. And he was kind of saying that India was one of those places that potentially would kind of benefit from kind of China, Russia, and the U.S. having a conflict, and them kind of playing middleman and kind of really boosting their own production and growing and kind of being the next China. So I just want to get your opinion on that. If you really thought that India kind of had what it takes to kind of grow, develop, and become a big world power.
Yeah, I listen, if you look at India from 5 years ago to today, it's completely different in terms of geopolitical strength. And I think if you look at it 5 years from now, 10 years from now, from where it is today, you're going to see a much, much stronger India. I mean, the economy is growing, it's surging. The sort of the first center-right government they've ever had is having success, pushing the country forward. This is sort of the old thing is if you want a major hedge against China, you're going to need India, right? There's right. So one of the lessons we should have learned from the pandemic is we can't have our medical manufacturing in China. Now there's other things, and they lied about this and they lied about that, and a lot of it is BS. And I'm with you, it came from a lab in Wuhan, China, blah, 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 blah. But
sure, yeah.
If there is a real medical emergency, right, something that actually is killing people, right, you're going to want to have a major manufacturing base in an allied country. You can't have the CCP have leverage over the West by saying, okay, right, you need medical supplies there. So the need for India to be an ally of the West is quite strong. And they're distrustful of America, to say the least. Now, they're very clear. If you listen to the foreign minister, they'll say, India is not Western. It's not a Western country, but it's not anti-Western. And they have no disillusions about China. They know China is not their friend. They have border skirmishes with them all the time. They understand the threat of radical Islam. They take missiles from Pakistan on the daily. They had the Mumbai attacks. So they are primed to come into, let's say, not our sphere of influence, but to be a respected partner of the West. And I think that's going to be important to secure trade and our geopolitical future and all that. So I would highly advise people to pay attention to Indian politics over the next few years, because in 10 years from now, you could be saying, well, America, Russia, I think America will still be number one, but that number two slot of you have S tier as America, A tier as Russia and China. I think India will go from, B plus where it is now to A tier in terms of geopolitical strength. And yeah, if you want to hedge against China, if you want a manufacturing base, if you want trade, if you want a geopolitical partner in a lot of this, you're going to have to start to pay attention to the Indian market.
Okay. And then do you feel the people, the Indians themselves, they're trying to become kind of more efficient, more effective at what they do? Because more from like a cultural perspective too, because I mean, like Chinese people are very like, I mean, from my experience with them, focused, kind of get things done, work, and Indian people are like more like enjoy life type of people. So that's kind of my only hesitation from like being like fully on with India from a just really financial perspective, like from a growth.
Oh no, India is a very hardworking, education-focused country, and high productivity. Like I have a lot of Indian friends I've made who are like, yeah, I used to work 18-hour days and started 3 companies and then I sold them and now they're in the media and all this. Like India is a hardworking country. Maybe not to the levels of like China where it's like gun to your head, work in this factory for 50 hours straight, or else we send your family off to a re-education camp. But India is culturally different than Brazil when it comes to work ethic. I can say that much for sure. So in a
positive direction.
In a positive direction, right? Brazil, which is like, let's take a nap and then dance around. India is more like, let's go to work and make money and I want my kids to become a doctor, lawyer, engineer, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well, hey, thanks. And Danny, thanks again for taking this geopolitical turn for Low Valley Mail.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, I generally go when the times. I mean, I had James actually booked for months. It just happened that I wanted to talk to him about the Oklahoma City stuff, but it just didn't seem like that was the thing to talk about.
Yeah.
Not right about now. But all right, thanks, man.
All right, have a good one. Bye.
All right, we're going to take a couple more callers and then wrap this bad boy up. Thank you again, Daniel Bordman. I appreciate you very much. Hold on. Hello.
What's up, Danny?
Goob, how you doing, man? One sec while we patch you through. And you're on with Daniel Bordman. Go ahead, Goob.
Awesome. So I wanted to add a fight to the docket, Danny.
Let's go. To which docket?
I'll fight this guy.
You're gonna fight Daniel?
This guy sucks, dude.
What do you mean?
He just keeps let me put it in context for you.
Do you have a question for him?
No, I just think he sucks, man.
I mean, that's not really constructive.
The Jews can do absolutely no wrong.
I don't think he said. Did he say that?
Everything that the Hamas does is pure evil, and it's a purely black and white conflict. He's been saying that the whole time. Like, he completely dismissed Israeli bombing the hospital. He goes, "Oh, it was only 80 beds, so it's no big deal."
No, he didn't say it was no big deal. I don't think.
Man.
I mean, I don't. Goob, first off, I don't think he said that. He did say it's 80 beds, but I don't think he was dismissing.
I said 80 beds in the context for people reporting 1,000 casualties immediately. Skeptic.
I don't know, man. He seems to be dismissing, like, every time he goes, "Oh, let me put it in context," he just dismisses anything evil the Jews do, and he has repeatedly said.
What do you mean the Jews?
It's very
like you mean the Israelis? You mean the Israelis?
The evil Jews. Yes, it seems.
Yes.
Do you have a point?
Yes.
Do you have an example?
All right, good. We're gonna let you go. Yeah. Oh, I hung up on him. I don't know. Generally, I like it to be a little more cordial. Hold on, we're gonna take another call. You know what? I think I accidentally. Hold on a second. Oh, whoops. All right. Someone called, but I inadvertently hung up on them. So, anyways. All right. Well, you know what? We're going to wrap the show up very, very shortly. Daniel, where can people find you? Well, hold on. I fucked up. I did something. I don't think I can hear him. Hold on a second. What did I do here? Oops. What did I do?
Wait, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Daniel, do we still have you? Hold on a second. Join.
I got you back.
Oh, there we go. Sorry, I think I fucked something up. Go ahead.
We good? Okay. I want to be a little bit more productive than the last guy when it comes to specifically Netanyahu and the Likud's involvement with the Hamas terrorist organization. So if I could just read one quote from Haaretz that was reported back in 2019, quote, "Anyone who wants to thwart the establishment of a Palestinian state has to support bolstering Hamas and transferring money to Hamas," Netanyahu told his Likud party Knesset members in March 2019, quote, "This is part of our strategy," unquote. What do you think about that?
So I'm not sure the context of the quote. I would say, it sounds bad. I mean, Netanyahu has a history of sort of being a bit inside baseball jokes, we'll say, to like there's a possibility this is a general leaked cabinet thing, and I'm unaware of it. And there's another possibility where it's him saying, listen, if you want to undermine the Palestinian people, give money to Hamas, to make a wider point that, Hamas is the problem to the Palestinian people and it's the main obstacle to peace. So I'm not sure in which context he said that quote. Did he say it as like, sort of a humorous dig at Hamas to make a wider point? I don't know. Is this actually like, hey, the Israeli government is propping up Hamas to use as a boogeyman? Maybe.
Well, the context is, quote, this is part of our strategy, unquote.
That is something that I've seen going around, I mean, I don't think that's the craziest thing to believe that, as a strategic thing that might be something they did, thinking, that would work to his benefit. But
yeah, I would say it's a short-sighted bad idea to send money into Hamas. I mean, listen, are Israelis making power plays for personal gain over the good of the population like every other government? Yeah, probably. I mean, statistically, it's more than likely. Is there a definitive link between Likud funding and Hamas that we found? I mean, to me, that's such a high risk, because in Israeli society, if you're found to have done this, like hard, like evidence, listen, if you're sending Israeli taxpayer dollars to Hamas and you're Benjamin Netanyahu, your career's over. If that's so. Like, I know enough about Israeli society to say that will never fly, right? That's such a high level of treason to many people that it would destroy him. So
is Haaretz, they're the left wing publication there?
Yeah, Haaretz is very left wing. Yeah,
okay.
They publish a lot of stuff that I don't like.
Yeah, fair enough.
What about the Jerusalem Post? Netanyahu, money to Hamas, part of strategy to keep Palestinians divided. Quote, now that we are supervising, we know it's going to humanitarian causes, unquote.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like something. It seems like, from a strategic standpoint, it doesn't seem like the craziest thing to do. Like,
okay, now they talk about aid. I think there could be in the context of not we're giving money to Hamas, but we're letting the international community fund Hamas. Because again, Canada, we give lots of money. Like Canada, we're going to give $10 million to Gaza, not to Hamas, but to our trusted partners in the government of Hamas. Right? This is Trudeau speak. So, I think this is naive if from Netanyahu, and I'm not saying you're making it up, but what it sounds like here is it looks like Netanyahu is letting the international community fund Hamas for cynical personal political gain.
Because he's a criminal terrorist. All right. I'll let the next caller get in. Have a good night.
Thanks, buddy. All right. Hold on. All right. We're going to, yeah. So let people know where you're finding. We have a few more minutes, of the show. Let people know where they can, find you, sir.
Yeah. I mean, I exist under my name. So Dana Bordman, it's ranting for Canada on Twitter, but you know my name. I have an Instagram, YouTube. I co-founded the National Telegraph, so do independent media in Canada. So the National Telegraph, my name. If it's my name and my face, that's me.
That's you. Okay, we're cool. All right, we're gonna take the last call of the night. 1 sec, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hey, what's up? 1 second while we patch you through. And all right, you're on. Last call of the night. Go ahead.
Oh, hey, this is Charles Nasty. This is actually it might be a vague kind of question, but I was wondering with Daniel, what do you think about Trump and all this? He was on speaking terms with both the Israeli government and the Saudi Arabian government.
Oh, thank you for asking. This is a great question to end on. If Donald Trump was president right now, this would not have happened. Donald Trump got foreign policy right. Okay? An important part of foreign policy is you have to have your own country's interests first, right? But not like the people who claim to be America first, Nick Fuentes. That's isolation. No. America first is priority. Ally second, you must fight your enemies and then take care of, interests around the world. Like, this is standard. Donald Trump was very, very good at keeping the Islamic Republic at bay. He had them under sanction. He had them under pressure. He had them know that if they moved a muscle, he would smack them. So he kept them at bay. The global terrorism funding from the Islamic Republic decreased. Hamas and Hezbollah, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, all of them were under resource crunches and didn't have the capabilities to launch full-scale jihads as they will. So Trump understood foreign policy. The countries that are openly hostile towards you, you have to combat them. Obama and Biden had the exact opposite thing. They have the I can hug the terrorism away mentality, where Obama took the Islamic Republic was on its knees under sanctions. They were starting to term this thing called heroic flexibility, where they were going to give into American demands. And then Obama released a bunch of money and let them off the hook, and then they became more radical. And then he gave them a bunch of money for the JCPOA, and they became more radical, and Yemen burned because of it. And then Biden came in and released even more money to the Islamic Republic of Iran, and the world is now burning because of it, right? And it's not just the money, the $6 billion. There's also loosening all the sanctions and allowing them to basically funnel oil money through Venezuela. And while he's destroying American energy and economic independence on energy, which is another good thing Trump did in foreign policy, energy is very important to foreign policy. He's basically allowed the Islamic Republic of Iran to, insert itself into the global energy supply unabated and empowered them to use this money to finance terrorism and chaos. So had Trump been president right now, those 1,400 Israelis would still be alive. I believe that to be 100% true.
Yeah, seems probably likely. I mean, his unpredictability, I think, was a pretty big.
He's not perfect.
No.
But you're right. It's the sort of, but he had this sort of tit for tat mentality. When people cooperated with Trump, he cooperated with them. When people opposed Trump, he opposed them. That's actually pretty good foreign policy for how simple it is.
Yeah.
A lot of academics get wound up in all these crazy philosophies and don't understand these countries. And the Trump philosophy was clearly better in my approach to foreign policy.
Yeah. All right.
The go-to meme is we traded mean tweets for World War III. I know it's not that simple, but it's that simple. All right, thanks.
Yeah. All right, thanks. Appreciate it. All right, that's been to the show, everybody. Did you get all your plugs in, Daniel? Everybody knows where they can find you. Ranty for Canada on Twitter. They can find you everywhere else there. Go check out, was it the National Telegraph?
The National Telegraph.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate you coming on. Shout out to James Corbett in the first half. If you guys are in and around Saratoga Springs this weekend, come check me out. Support the show, patreon.com/lowvaluemail. New episode of The Bathhouse tomorrow night, 10:30. See you all soon. Good night, everybody.
My shit heroic. Empathic abilities, yeah, my face be also stoic. Bleep, blow up, nigga, that just means I'm working. They see me as a leader, so that's why I'm Captain Kirkin. These tracks from the stars, that much is for certain. You can feel this hit if you up or if you hurt. I'm raising my stock, not talking my feet in some Birkin. Number Johnny 5, got a fucking short circuit. Bring the track to life when I speak phenomenally. When I hit, she feel that shit in her abdominals. These rappers make me laugh like comic view, they comical. You know I got a ball out, I hit the track running just like Sonic do. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, they was trying to get me on my hype shit. Yeah, they don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, they tried to down me up some KO type shit. Yeah, they don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, now we pulling up fresh on some flight shit. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, they don't wanna turn on my light switch. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, they was trying to get me on my hype shit. Yeah, they don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, they tried to down me up some KO type shit. Yeah, they don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah.